Over the weekend, the Group of Seven agreed to an infrastructure plan led by the U.S.
The White House has confirmed that the gathering of leaders have launched a plan to build infrastructure in the world's poorer nations, a direct response to China's Belt and Road Initiative.
Seriously? China's Belt and Road Initiative was launched 8 years ago. For years, critics in the U.S. have been bad-mouthing the initiative, calling it a debt trap or a power grab. And now it finally thinks it's a good idea and offered its own version? Look at the double standards. When the US is offering its own infrastructure plan for lower-income countries, it suddenly becomes the good guy, and I quote, help narrow the $40 trillion needed by developing nations. And it is not very convincing that the US can provide a better alternative to Belt and Road Initiative, not even to Americans.
In China alone, they have 40,000 kilometers of high-speed rail. America has none. Our fastest train is the train that goes around the zoo. California wanted to build high-speed rail connecting the entire state, but alas, could not. We're $6 billion in the hole just trying to finish the track connecting the vital hubs of Bakersfield and Merced.
And how are they going to finance the infrastructure plan? America has already seen its debt mountain with a sweeping plan to tackle the COVID-19 pandemic, fund domestic infrastructure, healthcare, education, and more, which critics say is reckless. What? The US can print a dollar? Okay then, forget it. It is not the first time the US is doing this. For a long time, many in the US have been criticizing China's industrial policies, calling Made in China 2025 a threat to global trade. But recently, the US came up with its own version, the Innovation and Competition Act, which is expected to pour billions of dollars into high-tech industries such as AI and semiconductors. That means, as long as it is the US who is subsidizing key industries, it is not a threat to global trade. I understand the US is a bit anxious to stay competitive because China is quickly catching up. As a result, the US appears to be trying all means necessary to contain China, rallying support at the G7 to take on China and counter China's influence, and did not waste this opportunity to use very specific language to criticize China on so-called human rights abuses. The US has repeatedly used democratic value and human rights as excuses to point fingers at, or even worse, demonize China. However, there is not only one kind of democracy in the world, and it is not up to the US to define what human rights means. The Chinese Foreign Ministry has made it clear that there is only one system in the world, that is the international system with the United Nations at the core and the international order based on international law. The US should be aware that the days when global decisions were dictated by a small group of countries are long gone. Even the relevance of the G7 is being increasingly questioned. Its global influence is diminishing, with combined GDP declining from making up 80% of the world's economy in 1975 to around 40% today. If G7 countries want to stay relevant, my advice is to focus on your own problems and make efforts to innovate rather than meddle with China's internal affairs and emulate what China has done.